From the land of lakes, this is 10,000 Takes. Brought to you by Minnesota Score Radio. Wally and Eric back for yet another week as we slice and dice the always busy, always topical, super saturated Minnesota sports scene. And here we are in the final days of July. So the dog days are coming up. Oh, boy. And the Minnesota Twins right now sitting pretty good in the American League Central. There's a bit of separation between the Twins and your Cleveland Guardians. Will Minnesota be able to get to the finish line and seal the deal, unlike a year ago?
Well, and I think we've been waiting for a team, whether it was the Twins or Cleveland or even Detroit. I'm not going to say Chicago because they're just crappy.
It's a T-ball team.
Yeah, they're terrible.
Defensively, what a mess. They're like a finger painting. They're hard to watch.
Yes, they are. They do things that some of the Little League teams I coach wouldn't do. But the Twins have done that since the All-Star break. They went into the All-Star break not so hot, if you recall. I mean, they got crushed by Baltimore in that final series and fell behind Cleveland in the standings by a half game, and you're thinking, okay, but Oakland, a trip to Oakland cures all these days. So you go and
a magic pill. 3 doses of the A's, vitamin A.
That's like playing bingo. You get a free spot.
Yeah, basically this year it is.
So Oakland is your free spot, And so the Twins go into Oakland. They take care of business. They split in Seattle. They come home and sweep those lovely White Sox that you have alluded to. And, that start gets them off and running. And, Cleveland plays around 500, but then the Twins kind of vault further ahead. And if they can keep it up, Kansas City, they still have some games with the Royals. I mean, if they can keep this going, that'll be key because it'll force the Twins have a lighter schedule in the second half of the season than Cleveland does. So this could be a time that they do break away.
Yeah, and I think in the AL Central, which is definitely the most mediocre division in Major League Baseball, if the Twins can separate and actually build up a good record so they can have confidence if they get into October baseball, the postseason, then that should bolster their chances to maybe win a series, or dare I say it, even win a playoff game, which they're for their last 18. But, nobody's going to pick anybody coming out of the Central to do any damage. But you never know. The Twins' mojo lately has been a lot better than what we've seen for, parts of that first half. And there's a lot of good storylines right now. Certainly the starting rotation has been very good, solid. Kenta Maeda's come back from Tommy John surgery. Yep. I think he's looked outstanding. And then you've got this rookie Edward Julian out of Quebec City, Quebec, who knew about him?
No,
right?
Nobody.
When they were in the Grapefruit League in Florida, you had to be a hardcore Twins fan to know about Julian.
No, and he's been really good. I mean, I think he's the only guy hitting over 300 on the roster right now.
He is. He's their new version of Luis Ariz.
But we'll take it. It'll have to make up for some of those Joey Gallo
somebody
strikeouts.
Has to set the table. Yeah, I mean, Carlos Correa's gotten better. He had a walk-off hit the other night in the 10th inning. We were at that game against Seattle, and his average slowly starting to creep up. But it needs to get higher.
Right.
And I never wonder about his glove. He's outstanding in the field. He's a platinum glover, and he's a leader in the locker room. So are they getting everything they should out of Carlos? Not quite. I think that bat's got to be better, but they're getting enough.
Yeah, no question. And it is trending up. Let's see if it can continue. You asked, is there a worse division anywhere than the AL Central? Yes. The NFC North will probably be worse this year.
Wow. Well, it could be. I mean, it's like pick a color, and that team might win it. You can go with the purple in Minnesota, the Honolulu blue in Michigan, or the navy blue on the Midway in Chicago, or that green and gold combo they have over there in Cheeseland. Yeah. I think it's up for grabs. I was thinking about it the other day. If I had to pick somebody to win, it's hard to say Detroit, just given the history of the Lions and their penchant for messing things up. They're the Timberwolves and cleats, in my opinion. I'll believe it when I see it. I think Chicago might be the team to watch.
Wow. Okay.
And I know that's a risky statement because the Bears have been a disaster the last few years.
Well, any Chicago team has.
It's true.
Now, I mean, which Chicago
Except
team
for
do
the
you
Chicago
like?
Sky and the WNBA.
Oh, okay, well, let's say. But back to the White Sox. I was at that game, the Sunday afternoon game. along with my wife, Dawn, and it was 3-0 going into the bottom of the ninth. And she said to me, well, the Twins, they're not going to be able to come back from this. They haven't scored all day. I said, just wait. It's the White Sox. Anything is possible. And, of course, they bring in their reliever, Graveman, and he walks the first guy, bottom of the order, walks the first guy. Next couple of guys get hits, and they go back to the top of the order, and it was all bets are off now. And then a sacrifice fly that shouldn't have been a sacrifice fly, just a routine fly ball to right field, and the right fielder falls, and the Twins are able to score the tying run in I think that was the 10th inning that happened. I mean, the White Sox, man, they are a disaster.
They give away outs.
Yes.
Yeah, I saw 2 of those games at Target Field. I saw the other one on national television. They give away outs.
And games.
And eventually that turns, potential W's into L's. In that Sunday game, like you said, it's 3-0. And I still, in my mind, I said, the Twins may come back here because it was Lucas Giolito who was dominant on the mound, but he was long gone. They brought in Kendall Graveman, like you said. He dug a grave for the White Sox to hop into. And our good friend Larry, who loves the silver and black, right, the Chicago White Sox, he left before the 9th inning. He was so confident the White Sox would avoid the broom job, but not to be.
Yeah, he must not watch too much White Sox baseball this year.
He's smart if he doesn't.
Yeah, right.
All right, well, stick around. We're going to talk some purple. Training camp has begun. What's going on out in Eagan? Matthew Hatchette going to join us here on 10K Takes your Twins ticket.
Look at this. Look at that.
Oh, yeah.
That's the one thing he couldn't do.
I've been meaning to give you these for many years. I think they're perfect. Maya? Oh, I love your earring. Why didn't you try these?
It isn't just about vision. It's about care. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
$10,000 takes, and as the weather heats up, it must be that time of year, right? Training camp, NFL training camps across the USA, including in Eagan, not Mankato. Joining us now is former Minnesota Viking wide receiver Matthew Hatchette. Matthew, I know you look fondly back at those days in Mankato, 25 years ago or so.
Yeah.
What is the first thing that comes to your brain when you think of training camp? That word training camp comes around when you were a Viking. What's the first thing that pops in your head?
You know what? Real football. That's the first thing that pops in my head. 2-a-days, back-to-back, long days, long nights, waking up early, and then the new CBA just cuts all that stuff out, and they don't even have 2-a-days, 2 days in a row anymore. So I can't believe that the players get away with this stuff, but I believe back in the day, that's when the season was made. That's when I think you got your edge for the season. I think that's when you kind of separated yourself from a regular human being that walks this planet, because those 2-a-days were absolutely crazy. I mean, you weren't sleeping, you weren't getting enough rest, and you had to go out and perform at your very best. And I think that that's kind of what made a lot of the mental toughness. I think that's what made them. Training camp, an NFL training camp of 6 weeks doing the same thing every single day. But that grind was very real back in the day. So now that it's 2023, it's so disrespectful, but it's good for the players, it's good for the league. But yeah, they have it really easy nowadays compared to what we did back in the day.
So Matthew, give us your takeaways on Jordan Addison. You live out in SoCal now. He played at USC last season, Vikings #1 pick, and he makes a splash for all the wrong reasons going 140 miles an hour on I-94 between St. Paul and Minneapolis. A young receiver, if you had his ears and his eyes, what would you tell him?
Put everything else down. Like, just, disappear from social media, from friends and family. And these next 2 years are going to be the most crucial 2 years of your life. Again, good for him. He's not really a number one. So he gets to come in with a little bit of pressure that's not on him. But again, really, if he kind of falls back to a 3, I think it'll even be better for him. I think he's a couple years away from being that guy. But anybody, coming into this league with the way the defenses are today, it's like you really don't want to be a number one with all mental tools in your toolbox. And I just think he needs to just get away, grow, become a professional football player, see how it's done day in and day out. In 2 years, he could be a player. But again, I think having Justin Jefferson there will be his number one attribute, kind of like when Chris Carter was there and Moss came in. Again, Chris was the number one guy. People fail to realize that, but Moss quietly goes and has 17 touchdowns as a rookie. I don't see Jordan doing that, but at the same time, he'll should be able to have some success because he's not going up against the in the number one cornerback all season.
Eric alluded to it. He got a speeding ticket for going 140 miles an hour. It's been in the headlines here in the Twin Cities leading up to training camp. Do you recall any kind of off the field type of distraction when you were in camp? And if so, how do you handle that as a team and as players individually?
Well, I think unfortunately the Henry Ruggs incident from the Raiders that's what really the story. I think a lot of players from the Minnesota teams 20 or 30 years have got caught speeding going 120, 100. But now we're in a different era with social media, and again that Raiders scenario. Unfortunately, people lost their lives, so it's kind of on the forefront of everyone's mind, especially like the NFL offices and NFL teams. But yeah, we always try not to have distractions, especially with younger players. I think Denny Green did a great job of that, of explaining to us as a locker room, we cannot have the distractions, right? It's going to be hard enough to win games. It is. When distractions come into the locker room, that's kind of where things start to kind of, fade away as far as focus on the championship. And that's every team across the NFL. They're trying to take all distractions out. And again, when you have a high profile player early in the season, if these things are happening, you start out wanting, everybody starts looking at you because you're the distraction. So it's like all these things will only come up again if the Vikings start out 1-2, 1-3, and then like, oh, look at, this happened in training camp. And, all those things matter in professional sports because, as you know, the talent is going to be even all the way across the board, right? Who can put and have the mental toughness to, as a team, overcome these things as far as being off the court or off the field. Hence, the Memphis Grizzlies, I think, is a perfect example. Number one seed in the NBA, and they don't even get to the second round. And I think it has a lot to do with just the mental focus of the team, not necessarily the talent that they had on the roster. And of course, again, they're going to look at this in week 2 and 3 and 4. But hopefully, if he has no more distractions, it'll kind of be swept under the rug. But for the most part, right now, they do not want a second incident to come up with him, and they're going to be watching a little bit closer over the next 3 to 4 weeks.
As you know, Matthew, the NFL is now a passing league. It's glorified arena football in some cases. And so the NFC North, if you look at the quarterbacks, Justin Fields, Chicago, Jordan Love, Green Bay, Jared Goff, Detroit, Kirk Cousins in Minnesota, which quarterback do you like? Who's the top QB in the NFC North?
It depends on what you're trying to accomplish. If you want to win right now, I'm going to take the veteran. I'm going to take Kirk Cousins all day. If you want to win 2 or 3 Super Bowls over the next 10 years, I would take Justin Fields all day. I think it just depends on what you think is successful. Justin Fields' ceiling, obviously, is through the roof. But he's got some growing to do. And when he's in year 6 and 8, he's going to be an unstoppable player. If you give me the fourth quarter right now, week 4 of this year, give me Kirk Cousins all day of the week because, again, he's a veteran. He's proved it. He can go win games in the fourth quarter. And then if we're talking about playoff runs, I mean, Jared Goff, of course, doing what he did at the Rams, right? He's a successful quarterback, but I think it kind of depends on your perspective of successful when you're talking about those types of quarterbacks.
What do you think teams aim to do in training camp now? It's way different, as you already talked about, than when you were in camp. You were going 2-a-days, getting in shape, so on and so forth. Now, most of these guys aren't even going to play in the preseason games. Maybe they'll play in one of the 3 preseason games. What is there to accomplish during camp now?
I think their goal literally is get to week 1 healthy. I really do. I don't think it's about getting banged up. I don't think it's about proving who's tough. I think that prove that you're tough and you're an NFL football player from the 2000s and maybe up to the 2010 version of it. I think those days are over. We want to get to week 1 healthy. We have 17 weeks of a regular season. So, of course, it's a longer season. And, of course, then it's about the playoff push. So, I think it's, coming into camp, getting some team camaraderie, getting in shape. But back in the day, all those things were pretty much done in May and June. I would never had came to, the August 1st or July 23rd training camp not being in the best shape of my life. Now I think a lot of players go to camp to get in shape because I know they have some leeway. And again, it's not as taxing. You have a 2-a-day on Monday, you have practice on Tuesday, and then Wednesday you have a 2-a-day. Like right there, your legs are pretty much all the way back on a Tuesday. But that Wednesday after the 6th practice, like your legs are gone, and then you still have to have practice of your life that Thursday morning. So I think that's a big difference.
So are you optimistic about the Minnesota Vikings? A lot of people are saying the North should be up for grabs. There's no Aaron Rodgers. He's with the New York Jets now. The Vikings won 13 in the regular season a year ago, but most people don't think they can duplicate that. Where do you think the Purple land?
Again, I think it's between them and Detroit. Again, I think what Detroit's putting together in that division, I think they built it from ground up. I think they have a personality, they have a character that travels. I think the Vikings will kind of start finding their way probably weeks 5 or 6. I don't think anybody knows. I don't think they know. If you could change all of that perspective with a good start, right? You start out 4-2, 5-1, okay, you're rolling, but if you start out that 1-4 and 1-3, you're going to be like, oh, this is going to be a tough season because I don't see the same team put together. Again, they have the couple leaders, but at the same time, there's going to be some games where they're going to take Justin Jefferson out of the game and they're going to let these young kids see if they can handle the pressure, right? You don't have the Dalvin Cooks of the world as well. You don't have the Patrick in the locker room as well. So all things will come to fruition, but for the most part, I think a lot of people are saying, well, we don't know about these, right? They're not going to get picked high, but at the same time, nobody in that locker room cares because we have to go out and perform. So, again, they can start out with a, 4-2. I think they'll be right in there in the mix to win that division in the end. But if they start out 1-3, I think they're going to start struggling and probably getting ready for next year.
Matthew, appreciate the insight, and I'm sure we will be touching base with you once the season kicks off for real in September.
Absolutely. I'm always available, guys. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Matthew.
He is Matthew Hatchette, former Minnesota Vikings wide receiver, right here on 10,000 Takes. We're back with more after this timeout. Stay with us.
I've been meaning to give you these for many years. I think they're perfect.
Maya?
Oh, I love your earring. Why didn't you try these?
It isn't just about vision, it's about care. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
Look at this.
Look at that.
Oh, yeah. That's the one thing he couldn't do.
And we continue to roll along here on 10,000 Takes, and I know everybody is kind of focused on the NFL and the Vikings training camp, as we alluded to last segment. However, it was Big Ten Media Day for football recently, and guess what? Your Gophers aren't picked to win the Big Ten West. The final year of the Big Ten West, and they are not selected by the media. Now, that doesn't really mean anything, except that the Gophers have never won the Big Ten West and haven't won. When's the last time they won the Big Ten? Was that 68?
67. They had a share of the Big Ten.
Okay, they had a share of the Big Ten title.
They didn't go to the Rose Bowl that year because I think it was a three-way tie with Indiana and Purdue, and they chose Purdue because they had the longest wait.
Right. Yep, the longest
to go
drought.
to the Rose Bowl.
Yep.
So that rule is no longer applicable. They don't break ties that way anymore. But if there ever was a tie, the Gophers would go.
Oh, they'd win it now.
Their drought is epic, and
it's Vikings-like as far as winning a Super Bowl.
Well, I mean, you think about this market. Your two major players in football, the Vikings and the Gophers. Gophers haven't been to the Rose Bowl since '62. They've only been twice. They're 1-1. The only other really significant bowl games they've been to since the early 60s would be the Citrus Bowl game in Orlando and the Outback Bowl in Tampa, right? I mean, I'm talking about New Year's Day splashy bowl games. They've been to some other okay bowl games. They've had some success. But marquee, bang-for-your-buck bowls, they've only been to a couple in 60 years.
Yeah,
and then the Minnesota Vikings haven't played in a Super Bowl since 1977, and they haven't won one.
Really, I did not know that.
There's no Lombardi trophies in that in their trophy case out there in Egan.
In the house that Bud built.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. All right. So, in case you didn't see it, so the Gophers are picked to finish third in the Big Ten West, behind Bucky and behind Iowa. No surprise there, right? I mean, that's pretty typical.
Not really. I think the only way the Gophers change that narrative is if PJ can find a way to beat Iowa, which I don't think he's ever done yet.
Nope.
Now, he has had success against Wisconsin. I'll give him credit for that.
Yep.
They've got a 2-game winning streak. But he needs to do it in the same year and knock them both off. That pretty much would guarantee them a Big Ten West title. Now, I qualify that with,
until they slip up and lose to Northwestern.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Or they lose a home game to Illinois, or Purdue,
Rutgers,
like they did last year. Who'd they lose to a few years ago? Bowling Green. I know that wasn't a conference game, but they blew. They were like a 31-point favorite.
And I was in Ohio at the time. Boy, did I catch some flack for that one.
Yeah, it's just. I don't expect a whole lot out of this Gopher team. I know that the vibe coming out of Dinkytown is they're trying to dumb down expectations. They have a tougher schedule.
They got Michigan
with 7 wins. They do.
Michigan State, Ohio State. They play all 3 of them this year.
North Carolina's not going to be a picnic either.
No.
Kick up your Tar Heels, baby. They might not have a perfect non-conference season.
So the Gophers have to play the 2 teams that are picked 1-2 in the East, by the way, Michigan and Ohio State. They get Michigan here, but they got to go to the Horseshoe, and they get Michigan State as well. This is going to be a very difficult season.
And
for
they
them.
dominated Michigan State last season in East Lansing. And I think we all thought it was Minnesota's coming out party, and the national media started to jump on board as well. It turned out to be a mirage.
Yeah, Michigan State wasn't very good.
Right. So for Michigan State, they're going to come in here looking for revenge. They've got Nebraska, and I'm not high on Nebraska. I think they're living in the past. It's not going to happen, folks, in Nebraska. But Minnesota better make hay because next year UCLA and USC come in, and it only gets more challenging.
It'll get way better with USC and UCLA coming in next year.
Oh, boy.
All right, Takes of the Day coming up next. You are watching 10,000 Takes, your Gopher ticket.
Look at this.
Look at that.
Oh, yeah. That's the one thing he couldn't do. Tony Finau, the champion at the 3M.
I've been meaning to give you these for many years. I think they're perfect. earring. Why didn't you try these?
It isn't just about vision, it's about care. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
$10K takes on television as we get set to wrap up yet another episode. But before we step away, going to find out what your mood is. Grumpy Guardian, Giddy Guardian, Angry American. What is it today?
Well, I'd be an angry state trooper if I was the guy out on I-94 a week or so ago when your guy, Jordan Addison, the Vikings' #1 draft pick, the wide receiver out of USC, went speeding down I-94. I know that this has been hashed and rehashed over the last week or so, but we haven't had a television show since then, so I figured I'd give you a little bit more insight into what I think or thought about the happenings with Jordan Addison. Look, he was going 140 miles an hour, and he has since said that it was an animal crisis. He had a dog that was sick or something. I don't know what the case is. I don't know if that was true or not. If the dog was the dog in the car, did he have him buckled up? I don't know what was going on there. And 3 in the morning? What's he doing out at 3 in the morning anyway? Look, this guy is supposed to be your #1 pick. He's supposed to be a guy that you're going to, base some of your offense on. You got Justin Jefferson, you got KJ Osborne, and you got this guy. These are your 3 wideouts, and one of them apparently is a knucklehead. Look, Jordan Addison is young. He's going to make mistakes. Hopefully this is the last one he makes. But 140 miles an hour in a Lamborghini, I see he's spending his money well since he got drafted and paid, is not very bright. He could have hit a pothole on I-94. This is not Southern California where you come from, where the roads are silky smooth. This is Minnesota, where we have potholes everywhere, where construction season lasts about almost as long as winter. So it's in the books. Let's hope that he has learned. But I say this, take the keys away. He should not be able to drive for 6 months. That would be the penalty for you and I. It should be the penalty for this guy. I don't care how much money he has to pay a lawyer. Take those keys away for 6 months.
And the moon meter says, Grumpy Guardian. Yeah.
That's dangerous.
Definitely in the red. Well, hey, maybe he should pursue a career in NASCAR. He'd look good driving around Talladega or Daytona or one of those tracks down south.
He put himself in jeopardy and possibly somebody else, but by
there's
doing
no doubt about it.
Stupid.
Yeah, it's glad I wasn't out on I-94 at 3 a.m. about 9-10 days ago.
Yeah.
All right, well, my take of the day is also about the NFL. In a few days, we'll have the Hall of Fame induction ceremonies in Canton, Ohio. It's a huge deal, a lot of pomp and circumstance. And this year, the Shield is going to salute the iconic Jim Brown, number 32, who played with your Cleveland Browns. And he was a dominant running back, one of the greatest players in the history of the league. And he helped make the NFL what it is, the most popular sport on the globe right now. But here's the deal. The NFL comes off as being hypocritical in my eyes, because if Jim Brown played today, he wouldn't be getting paid enough. He would be phased out because the NFL today is glorified arena football. All they care about are cartoon-like numbers with quarterbacks airing it out to receivers and tight ends down the field. They don't care about Jim Brown anymore. They don't care about Walter Payton or O.J. Simpson or Eric Dickerson or Chuck Foreman or Adrian Peterson or Emmitt Smith or Marshall Faulk. All of those guys who are foundations and pillars of the NFL's greatness, well, they don't want them around anymore. Take a look at Saquon Barkley. Take a look at Dalvin Cook. Take a look at Josh Jacobs. Take a look at Tony Pollard. They don't want to pay these guys. So you're going to honor Jim Brown, who helped make you what you are, NFL, but in reality, you don't care about running backs anymore. Case closed.
Yeah. They want passing scrimmages, man.
And you know what? I'm tired of it. And on that note, we got to go. Let's FedEx out those thank yous. One to David Weld, Alex Yambrick, Matthew Hatchette, for Wally. I'm Eric saying so long. This is 10K Takes, your sports ticket.